What's up, y'all? It's Vanita, your favorite Capricorn.
And we're excited.
on the mic.
Beverly's here. So we're all here and we're giggling because we're so excited. We have a very special guest today, and she actually needs no introduction to the world, but I'll go ahead and say a little something about her. She is a wife and a mother and an all-around entertainer, not to mention a businesswoman, a savvy one at that. She's won so many awards, and it would take me about 30 minutes to just mention them all, but I'll just say a few of those important ones. She's won at least 3 Grammys. That's awesome. An MTV Video Music Award, American Music Award for Lifetime Achievement. She has a Hollywood star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, y'all. She has a Latin Grammy Award, and my favorite, she has a Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama. How awesome is that? Woo-hoo!
And that's my favorite too.
And the list goes on and on, not to mention all the TV shows and all the movies that she has appeared in, and we'll touch on that a little later. But one of my favorite things that she's doing now is Red Table Talk with her daughter and her niece, and I love listening and watching. So without further ado, we're not going to waste any more time, because once I say her name, you're all going to know, oh yeah, I know her. Introducing all the way, I don't know where she is right now, she'll tell us, but Miss Gloria Estefan.
Welcome.
I am so honored to be with you ladies. Right now, I'm sitting in my studio in Miami Beach, not Miami, Florida. Miami Beach is where I live, but I've been traveling around a lot promoting, as I spoke to you about, The Father of the Bride, the movie that comes out on HBO Max on June 16th. So we'll get that plug out of the way so we can just start talking about really serious things that matter.
Exactly.
But I am really happy to be here. And, funny enough, my daughter, Emily, and Jem, her partner, are also doing a podcast called In Our Own World. So they've joined your world of podcasting.
Okay.
And and we're really excited just to be out there doing our thing. We've got surprises coming this year that I will mention when I can. Right now I can't because that's not locked down, but it involves my grandson and my daughter and me.
Ooh, okay.
Awesome family.
And I'm super excited about that. But thank you for having me on, and congratulations on your show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come to the island and hang out with us. So let's just jump right in. We're going to start out with some really serious stuff, but we're going to end up with some really fun stuff to talk about. But I know recently your first grade teacher passed away, and we here at the island actually knew her. Her name was Dorothy Collins. And tell us what she meant to you. How did you come to know her?
Oh my gosh, Mrs. Collins. I was blessed to be in her life and her in mine when I went with my father to Texas. He was stationed there. He had just joined the U.S. Army, and that was his first place that they sent him, at Fort Sam Houston, and he studied English at Lackland Air Force Base. So they put me in Winston Elementary School, which was walking distance to from where we live. Of course, at that time, you could, at 6 years old, walk to school safely, although my mom did walk me the first few times. And I encountered Mrs. Collins. It was the first year that schools had been desegregated, and she was my first grade teacher. I did not speak any English when I started in the class because it was important to my mom that I know Spanish. So she spoke only Spanish to me. And she knew that I would learn in school the minute I went in there. But at the time, I remember being the only Hispanic in the class. I know there was a lot of kids from parents of other places. There was Germans in there, and there was all kinds of international students as well. But I was the only Latina. And I remember the first day of school, a little boy calling me stupid. And I didn't know what that word meant, but I knew it wasn't nice because of the way he called me. And Mrs. Collins immediately, I remember, told him, you don't call anyone that. She hasn't learned the language yet, but I'm sure she will. And 6 months later, thanks to Mrs. Collins, I won the reading award in the class and snatched it right out of his little hands. And he called me stupid.
Love it.
So she used phonics. I remember we were doing phonics a lot at that time. And I love to learn. So she was just so supportive and wonderful a teacher. And her spirit and the way that she handled the class stuck with me forever. I'll never forget how proud I was when the parents started complaining about how could the only Hispanic girl win the reading award. And she
Yes.
really defended me and to all the students and the parents. So that stuck with me. Then through the years, I don't even know how it is that we stayed in touch. I know that once I became more well-known and we started traveling to Texas. By the way, my sister was born there in San Antonio.
Okay.
6 years old, my sister Becky,
Okay.
who I love and adore. And then I started reaching out and I would talk about her. I remember, I think the first time that she reached out to me, I had done a big article in the Reader's Digest and I mentioned her by name. And I think that she somehow reached out to my office, or we tried to find her, or Reader's Digest tried to look her up so they could interview her. And then that's how we got back into each other's lives. And ever since then, I'm talking about the 80s or mid 80s, 85, 86. From then on, we got each other's phone numbers and we would talk at least once a year, sometimes more often. I was there for her and I would always check in on her. I invited her every time we had a show in San Antonio to come out and would introduce her to the crowd. I talked about her in many an interview because they would, they always tend to ask you those things, who was important in your life. And she was the very first person that wasn't in my family that was huge for me. So that's where it all started.
Well,
She was so
Gloria,
proud of that Reader's Digest. She made sure everybody saw a copy, and she was so elated when you had her to come on stage and you introduced her. She was so proud of you and what you had accomplished.
She really was. And she told me in no uncertain terms. And I was very proud of her. She became principal, I believe, to that very same school. Then she was honored as one of the ladies of distinction in San Antonio. I knew of all her activism and her philanthropy and the fact that she was such a huge part of the community and the church. Yes. So I was really very proud of Mrs. Collins as well.
well, she was very proud of you, and just she never failed to mention your name whenever she talked about the students that she kept in contact with or how they made an impression on her. And anytime you came to town and sent a car for her, she let us know that Gloria was sending a car for her. And so,
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay, go ahead.
One of my favorite things that I've ever experienced was when we went back to Winston Elementary School with Mrs. Collins. And I swear the school looked the same. The apartments that I lived in looked exactly the same. It was mind boggling. And we went back and it was like stepping back in time. It was beautiful.
Wow.
Well, when you all kept in touch, I know that anytime you came to town, you called her, but in between, I know that she always spoke of you. Did you all, besides phone calls, ever get to meet in some other town?
I wish we had, but we really couldn't because I was traveling continuously. She had my cell phone number. She never forgot to call me on my birthday. I would call her on special occasions. And as a matter of fact, this last birthday, September 1st, we spoke. I was at my house with my family because there was still like some serious lockdown going on with COVID. So, you know, for years, we were all kind of locked away. And she called me. And then thankfully, Pastor Mitchell let me know, and someone else from the church reached out to my email when she went to the hospital. I believe I was in Washington, D.C. when this happened, doing something. Yes. And I called her and was able to speak to her. And I feel blessed that that happened because I fully expected her to get out of the hospital and be back home and us be able to talk again soon. And that ended up being our last conversation. I called her back after that conversation, but I think I spoke to the pastor because I couldn't get through to her and she was having a tough time. Yeah. I know, Pastor, you spoke to her.
Oh, yes, yes. And
yes.
Yeah, when you called her that day, I was there and the expression on her face when you called, it just changed everything. And she called in all the nurses and said, "Yeah, I'm on the phone with Gloria Estefan. She's Grammy Award winning, you know."
Oh my gosh.
So she
She
worked up.
did.
And I will quickly add that we couldn't get her to eat. And you told her, Ms. Collins, you need to eat. Okay, I'm going to. So she ate after you told her to do that.
Oh, that
Awesome.
makes me
Awesome.
happy. I mean, you know, she lived a blessed life. She blessed a lot of people's lives, including my own. And I'm sure that she's in her heavenly reward, probably reprimanding half the people up there for their grammar. They're doing things the right way.
Definitely.
But,
Yes.
I always like everything done in decent and in order.
Mhm.
I just want to say that video tribute that you sent in for her
Yes.
services was fabulous. It was so well received, and thank you for taking the time to do that so that her friends and her family could celebrate in the words that you stated on that video. It was
Thank you
wonderful.
so much. I mean, I know that all the churches are different and that your church is probably a very celebratory church, even at the moment of goodbye, because, you know, we all believe we're going on to a better situation.
Yes.
It was tough for me though, because I was really so touched and sad that we had lost her. And I just hope people could realize how special she was in my life and how wonderful I really felt she was.
Well, I will say, she did say you were her best student.
Yes.
Well, what's she gonna say? Like,
I know, right?
Well, she told us over and over, and she was very proud of that. So
Yes.
congrats to you, because you made an
Thank you so
impression on
much.
her too.
that makes me so happy. And everything that happens in San Antonio, by the way, I always take to my heart in a very special way, because those are some of the happiest years of my life. A year and a half, really, we were there, because then we were transferred to South Carolina. But I have such beautiful memories there, and it remains very, very special, especially because it's a birthplace of my only younger sister, and we have some beautiful memories of San Antonio. And each time I've gone, I love how it's grown and evolved and how incredible this city is, and it's really amazing.
Yes, it is. It is growing, definitely. We're going to switch gears just a little bit. Recently, there have been many mass shootings, and close to us, speaking of San Antonio, Uvalde, where the 19 children and 2 teachers, educators, were murdered, basically. I know education is very important to you. What message do you have for parents, teachers, and even the government?
You know what? It is very important to me. My mom was a teacher. She was a public school teacher.
Okay.
I spent a lot of my youth going to her class and helping her out. She was always pulling money out of her own bank account to make life better and nicer for the students. She would buy them all at the beginning of the year, toothbrushes and toothpaste, and would march them into the bathroom after lunch. She would buy art supplies, and she was the union rep eventually for the school and was really involved. And needless to say, my dad was in the military. He served first our home country of Cuba, because I was born in Cuba. I came here when I was 2. He spent 2 years as a political prisoner there after the revolution, the Bay of Pigs invasion, because he was part of the forces that tried to get rid of Fidel Castro. And of course, that failed miserably, but he was in jail for 2 years there, political prisoner, and then came out and immediately joined the US Army, because he wanted to fight communism wherever it existed, and they had hopes of going back to Cuba. So these things kind of come together and converge for me, because I am very well aware of the Second Amendment, although what the Second Amendment says is arms for a well-formed militia. It nowhere says automatic weapons for any child can walk in and at 18 years old buy it and destroy the lives of so many babies and teachers. And it's really amazing to me that right now we're losing more children than we lose police and emergency personnel. I don't understand it. I wrote a whole post about it for Memorial Day. because I was so upset after that shooting at Uvalde that I couldn't find the words to express what I was feeling. And I've shot pretty much every type of gun there is because they taught me. My dad taught me and my uncles taught me I would not have a gun in my home. I feel that they are more dangerous to family members and children, and the
Yes.
statistics really show that the shootings that happen with guns in the home are usually two family members. People sometimes are hotheads and they'll take it out to scare somebody, and it just turns into a tragedy. And now in this country, we are the only country that has these mass shootings, despite the fact that every country has video games, has mental illness, and has all these
That's
issues
right.
happening. So we are doing something terribly wrong. And it's very frustrating to me. And by the way, I'm not affiliated. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat.
Okay.
I believe very much in this country. I love this country. It opened its arms to us, but we need to make changes that are logical, that will not infringe upon the rights of the citizens of the United States. And I do not see any need for automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons. These weapons that were used, the only difference between that and an automatic weapon and M16 is that the M16 can shoot off 3 rounds in one shot. And the Army doesn't even use it because it's really not a good way to use that firearm. I mentioned in my post that, my father would be so upset to see, a young man with no previous experience be able to buy a weapon that could mow down
Yes.
small children in a school. So I was very proud to see what Matthew McConaughey
Yeah.
did
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
when he went to
Or
Congress. And by the way, I was there after Columbine. I went to Washington with a lot of artists and the RIAA. We spoke to congressmen and senators. We had roundtables, leaving thinking, okay, something has got to come from this. And absolutely nothing came of it so many years ago. So I really believe that on the grassroots level, we have to, parents and people need to let their congressmen and senators know that we demand change, that we need these laws tightened up. We need stronger background checks. We need to raise the age to where you can buy a pistol, which is 21. Why can you buy an automatic weapon at 18? It just makes no sense.
Mhm.
And I know that they're trying, but the things that I've seen in this week that there's been talked about just doesn't go far enough. As far as I'm concerned, and this is my own opinion, I don't speak for anyone else other than myself. And I really think we need to make some changes.
Agreed. I concur totally. I know the House have put together some legislation that they have already passed, and the Senate has a group of nonpartisan or bipartisan, shall I say, group that have put together some legislation that they're going to finally put on paper and bring it to the floor. And hopefully it can at least start the process. But like you said, it's probably not enough. And we're so behind the 8 ball on this because it's like you said, more children are dying from guns in school than police officers. That's their normal jobs. So it's very sad to see, all that's going on with the kids in the schools or just the shootings, period.
And why is my question? Why can't, what is so terrible about, helping each other be a better country and making our children safer, and our teachers, they're on the front lines now. Our teachers, it's the same as if they were on the front lines of a war.
Exactly.
Literally, they throw themselves, in front of the bullets to save these kids. And, you think about, let's say one of the things that I'm hearing, which is absurd, let's arm our teachers. Okay, let's think about that for a minute. If you're in a 1st or 2nd grade classroom, you can't have a gun that's not locked up somewhere,
Right.
loose in the classroom. So then what happens? A shooter comes in and you're going to say, wait, hold on a minute. Let me go grab this gun out of a safe by the time that happens, that teacher will be dead. Like what happened with these teachers that were trying to save
Yeah.
these students. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And I don't know how in this great land that we live in, we can't be finding better solutions and we can't be working together. You know, it's kids of, they're from both parties, the children that are in school, their parents have got to understand that we're a nation, that we need to protect each other.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's,
I
don't
agree
see it happening.
wholeheartedly.
You
We-
can't buy a hand grenade, so you should not be able to buy a semi-automatic weapon because they're really weapons of war.
Yes,
I have a nephew that's in California, and what he is doing is actually teaching on the side because he's doing acting. And you know, when they first start that acting career, they got to have something on the
You
side.
have to, absolutely.
Yes, so he's teaching and his class is like 5-year-old and 6 years old. And he, after that happened, and he was so terrified. He's like, how do I protect these kids? If somebody comes into my classroom, what do I do to protect them? And right after the Uvalde shooting, they had a lockdown in their school. And I mean, he was so nervous. And he said, it's so hard to get little 5-year-olds to be quiet and hide because they want to talk. They're like, what's going on? What's happening? He was trying to keep them still and trying to keep them quiet. It's so much anxiety now in the classroom for the teachers and for the students. And we should not have to live like that, like you said, in this country that we call the greatest country on earth.
Absolutely. And you know, we see it, we see the anxiety in our children, both because of these fears and social media that immediately they find out about everything. We can't protect them from so much bad news. They feel hopeless. Suicide rates are up in our young people to crazy degrees. And, you know, I remember when I was a kid, we did those, you'd have to get under the desk because of the nuclear, you know, attack warning signals, but there was no real threat. It wasn't something that was happening every day of the week. In fact, it never happened. But
Yes.
these kids are seeing it happen and they know they don't feel safe anywhere. We've had shootings in places of worship, in schools, in malls, in medical centers, in yoga classes. We don't
Movie theaters.
feel safe anywhere. And it's really disturbing. And I don't know what it's going to take. I thought Sandy Hook would be a game changer.
Yes.
And still, we couldn't. How can we do this? I mean, other than change out our entire Congress and Senate, which, you know, there's reasons why things happen a little bit at a time, but it's just so incredibly frustrating and
Yes.
very, very tough. We're handing a very difficult world to our children.
Yes.
we have to find a way to make them feel safe, like you said. But I like what you said, Gloria, that it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. We still have to work together to make it a better community. And once we do that, I know that we'll be able to come to some kind of solution that will keep our kids safe and that will stop people from using weapons that are for war and not for everyday living. We've just got to make a change. And everybody on our podcast knows my main thing is vote. So you don't have to be Democrat or Republican. But if somebody's not going to help to protect our kids, then we can't vote for them. We've got to vote for someone who's going to stand up and have a backbone and do what needs to be done to protect our children and our teachers. Like you said, we're losing teachers. And so we need to protect them. So I like what you said. I just wanted to agree with you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And yes, we have to work together. You know, when I was a kid, Cubans have a reputation for being hotheads. And, you know, they purposely would stay away from political discussions in families and things because things could get out of hand like in a second. And I really looked to the American democratic system. I would watch these debates on TV and say, wow, you know, they're sharing different ideas and look, they're shaking hands and they've been able to keep it together. What has happened? What has happened through the years where we have lost all sense of respect and civility and the language that we use for each other? I studied communication, so I watch social media with a keen eye. And I think that has really, in many ways, it's given people an ability to share their opinion, but it also gives a lot of people that shouldn't be writing for mass consumption because they don't respect each other and they take us down to the lowest common denominator. And it's really sad to see that happen. I really believe we need to have respectful discourse and try to find a solution together. That's the only way we're going to do it, like you said.
Yes. Well, Gloria, I'm a retired special ed teacher. I did special education for 20 years. And whenever we would have a lockdown, if there was an active shooter in the neighboring neighborhood by our school, it is difficult to get kids to calm down, especially in special ed, and hide and be silent. So we would have like a bucket in a little section where they were going to hide of all their favorite things to keep them quiet. And, you know, once you close all the blinds and lock the door, they want to know what's going on. So, and then, you know, teachers just started retiring. They're retiring. They're going to a different field because they don't feel safe or comfortable educating children. It's scary. It's really scary. So I've had a lot of friends tell me that that's it, they're done. I mean, it's not to say that you can't get injured or harmed in another field, but it's so scary to be a teacher right now.
Absolutely. And they're underpaid. I know, you know, my mom was a teacher forever, and, you know, they don't have the resources. They're not given the resource, especially in public school. They give their lives. What would we be without teachers? I know a lot of parents during COVID were probably yanking their hair out by the roots.
Yes.
Because they had to be both parent and teacher. And that's what teachers do for 8 hours a day for our kids, and sometimes longer.
Yes.
They should be one of the best paid, you know, professions in the world.
I agree.
Because, yeah, they're nannies and they're teachers, and they're now on top of that, they're in harm's way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that we've had what they're calling the Great Resignation after COVID. A lot of people have rethought their lives. They've changed professions. They've gone back to study to try to better their lives, or they've realized in their 50s that they don't want to wait around to die from something. They want to enjoy what's left of their lives while they still have energy to do it. So we've lost a lot of the workforce in many ways. I could totally understand why teachers would be so disheartened. And also, by the way, it's happened the same way with healthcare professionals, with doctors, with nurses, with paramedics and ENTs. It's been tough.
Yes.
And I'm very curious to see how we, you know, rise above this and how we change and grow and evolve. But there are some scary times. And I can only imagine if you as a special ed teacher, if I put myself in your place, I mean, you probably would have to invent something like a game for them that would say, okay, now we're going to play this game. And because you don't want to scare them to death either, because
That's true.
your job as a teacher is to make them feel good and strong.
Right.
It's just got to be so frustrating. And I want to shout out all of those amazing educators that we have, special ed teachers like you, teachers like Mrs. Collins, people that really sacrifice their lives for the good of our children in this country, and our healthcare professionals and our police and the people that put themselves in harm's way for us every day. And the people that stuck it out during COVID, putting themselves in harm's way, working at the grocery stores and in the places that needed to continue. I have nothing but thanks and appreciation for these people, and they deserve so much from us. Really, they do.
I agree. I
Same
agree.
here.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with Diva Gloria.
Oh my God.
And we're back. We're back at the island with our special guest and entertainer extraordinaire, Gloria Estefan. And as you all know, we've been having a serious conversation, but it's time to lighten things up. And so, Gloria, here's what I'd like to do, take you back in the day and your early career. So could you share with us how the Miami Time Machine got started, and what do you remember most about that experience?
Oh my gosh. First of all, let me say how much I love the name of your podcast, The Island, because I'm an island girl. I was born on an island. Florida is practically an island. It's just hanging on by a thread there. The rest of the United States. And I live in Miami Beach on an island.
All
So
right.
the island way is definitely a beautiful way to be and think. So congratulations. All right, let's go back. I sing since I talk. So this came with me. I never expected to become a singer because, you know, immigrants, we need a job. We need to be able to really make sure that we have a profession. Plus, I loved school. My mom had a PhD in education from Cuba. So a university degree was expected and I wanted one. I had just graduated from Our Lady of Lourdes Academy, an all-girl Catholic nun school here in Miami. And I learned to play the guitar when I was in South Carolina at 8 years old so that I could accompany myself and sing along. So music has always been my escape, my catharsis, my way of emoting. And then my dad became ill from Agent Orange poisoning when he came back from Vietnam. And we could only afford to have the nurse come while I was in school and my mom was at work. She was revalidating her teaching credentials at night. So it was left up to me to care for my dad and my younger sister while she was gone. And music was my escape. So one day I used to play at the folk masses in church and with the group from my class, and we had a brother school, Belen, and the guys there, some of them played guitar too. And we used to play at the masses. So I remember that a friend of mine said, look, I want to put together a group for one of the nights that our parents are coming back from a spiritual retreat. And we want to put the band together just for entertainment for them and a party we're going to throw. I go, okay, that's cool. That's great. So I want you to be the singer. I go, all right, I'm going to come over. So we were at his house rehearsing. I was sitting on the floor. He was playing the keyboards. We were practicing, choosing some songs. And he said, by the way, this guy's going to come over that works with my dad at Bacardi Imports. He's got his own band, the Miami Latin Boys, and he's going to give us some pointers on how to do this thing. And I go, okay, great. So there's a knock at the door. They open it, and all I see is bare legs and an accordion because he was wearing the shortest shorts. You got to remember, this was 1975. So he's wearing these short shorts. He looked naked from where I was looking. So he comes in, he asked me to sing. He does his thing with the accordion, and that's it. He left. So later on that summer, my mom says, I want you to accompany me to a wedding of one of your dad's Army buddies' daughters. I grew up with her in South Carolina. We were friends back then. And I told her, Mom, I can't. I was working 2 jobs already. Since I was going to start school in September as a sophomore, because I had gotten 30 credits from the college level examination program, I was doing a lot of work during the summer to catch up. And I also taught community school guitar 2 nights a week. And my work at the airport, interpreter for customs and immigration, I worked 6 days a week from 1 in the afternoon to 9 at night.
Wow.
How many jobs did you have at once?
I had 2 at that time. And then when I joined the band, it was 3. So when I went to the wedding, I said, okay, Mom, she guilted me into it. And I remember walking in Hialeah into a banquet hall, beautiful. I didn't get to go out anywhere because I took care of my dad. So I really had no social life to speak of. And I remember walking into what felt like a magical movie set with the twinkle lights and everybody dressed up to the nines and this band in tuxedo playing Do the Hustle on the accordion. This guy. So I go, wait a minute, this guy looks familiar to me. And not many people played accordion, I got to tell you, at that time. So we run into each other in a doorway and I go, wait a minute, you're that guy. Like, aren't you that guy that came to give us the pointers? He goes, yeah, you're that girl. He goes, hey, why don't you sing a couple songs with the band? And I go, well, I mean, I don't know what you know. I go, I know a lot of old Cuban standards, that I played for my mom and grandma. I go, do you know Sabor a mí and Tú me acostumbraste? He goes, yeah, of course I know those. So we didn't even pick a key. I just said, okay. My mom's going, yay, sing with the band. If she knew it was coming, she wouldn't have done that. But I sat in, and of course I got this standing ovation from, everybody that was there. They knew me. I used to sing with my guitar and play music for them at my house and at their house. So I guess it impressed Emilio, and he said, hey, you know, we don't have a lead singer. What do you think about joining the band? And I go, look, I really can't. I'm sorry. First, my mom will kill me. And secondly, I got 2 jobs already. I'm going to start full load at school in a month and a half. But thank you. You know, it's really nice that you would. He goes, no, you have a beautiful voice. It would be really different. There's no girls in any bands in Miami. They're all guys. I go, I appreciate it, but no, I really can't. And then 2 weeks later, the phone rings at my house. He tracked down my phone number and he called, and my sister picked up the phone, and she's like running all over the house. It's that guy from the wedding, and making fun of me. And he invited me to join, and I did. My mom wasn't happy about it, but I really wanted to do it. And I said, Mom, I'm going to do it in my spare time for fun. You know, I'm not going to let it interfere with my studies or my work. And I joined the band. And then about a year later, I would bring all these songs to perform that he never did, like disco tunes and ballads. And then we started writing our own stuff because he said he wanted to do an album, and I did. I started writing. I go, well, I've written poetry and I write parodies of songs all the time. So then they changed the name because we weren't just boys anymore to Miami Sound Machine. And then we started really getting popular all over Miami. And then we did our own record. We went to the studio and did it on our own, and it got put on the radio. And it was just very slowly growing. And we became famous in Latin America, and we'd go do a 50,000 seater stadium and then come back and do a 200-person wedding in Miami because they weren't
Wow.
playing our music on the radio in the US. And it just grew from there. Emilio was my boss for a year, but then we really did, you know, we're attracted to each other. We didn't want to mess things up by starting a relationship that might then go wrong, but it was just so natural. We got married. I started in 75. We got married in 1978.
Wow.
And we had our son on our second anniversary in 1980. And things just slowly, we were our own cheerleaders, and we knew what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to use that vocabulary of both our Cuban roots and American music that I'd grown up listening to. And it was just a natural process that little by little grew and grew and grew. And we fought hard for our sound. They tried to get us to take out the horns and the percussion and change our name. And we told them, no, this is who we are. If we're going to succeed, we want it to be with who we are culturally,
Good.
not try to adapt to something and be one more of the same. You know, we need to be who we are. And it worked out for us really well.
Well,
I
it
love the
really well.
percussions. The percussions
Yeah.
are awesome, especially when the
Yeah.
rhythm's gonna get you.
Exactly. And it does. It got a lot of
Yes.
people.
It got all of us. We were all
Yes,
kind of
indeed.
doing some kind of dance around. I always did it when I did my housework before I got to go to a game or something.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? There's a lot of African music in Cuban music. And
Yes.
that Afro-Cuban sound we injected into this pop sensibility. And, you know, Miles Davis used to love the song Conga. I got to be
Yeah.
honored to meet him because he could hear the more complex syncopated rhythms that were underneath what people thought was just a simple pop song. So he understood the complexity, but people just listened to the simplicity. And I think that's been a big reason why we've been successful worldwide. And that's been a big part of Cuban music. You know, those African roots run all through Latin music. And as a matter of fact, we just won another Grammy for our album Brazil 305 that explores the roots that we share with Brazil. And
Awesome.
the Yoruba tribe that was taken both to Cuba and Brazil, and the richness of the music that combined with the European elements that were there and created music that was unique to each one of the countries. And it fascinates me. So that rhythm is what really made us cross over all over the world.
Yes.
Wow,
Thank
that
you.
is
It's been a
awesome.
blessing and a fun blessing at that.
Yes. it
Yes, I want to take you to the screen now, from your music to the screen. And I know you put a plug in there for Father of the Bride, but you are co-starring with Andy Garcia. He is such a handsome man. Oh my God.
Mhm.
He's a
He's
good
so
friend
handsome.
for over Yeah, over 3 decades. You know, it's funny because you know what I was telling you the story about Miami Latin Boys and how we started, and we used to play weddings, bar mitzvahs, quinces, corporate events. And there was this guy, we called him the Phantom Sitter Inner, that at the end of the night, when we would play all these old Cuban congas that that inspired us writing the song conga, but they were hundreds of years old, coming from Cuba, these congas that we would do as a medley at the end of the night. All of a sudden, this young guy would jump up on, get on percussion and start playing. And it was Andy Garcia
Wow.
when he was in college, and we didn't know who he was. And we would just know, oh, there's that guy again. He's jumping up on stage, but
Wow.
he was good. He was good. And Andy loves music. And he was actually instrumental in winning 2 Grammys for Cachao, one of the glories of Cuba. He was an Afro-Cuban bass player that played in the symphony, and 12 of his family members were musicians. And he came to Emilio, and that's where we really became friends in the 80s. And we've been friends ever since. And it was really easy. I've been in a movie with Andy before. It's called For Love or Country.
Okay.
And he was in one of my videos, See Your Smile. If anyone wants to take a look at that, at the end, he comes up, he's the waiter in this diner. And I ask him, hey, is the waiter on the menu? So now I play his wife in this reimagining of the intellectual property Father of the Bride that goes all the way back to 1950, 51 with Spencer Tracy and
Right.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Right.
And then in the 90s with Steve Martin.
Yes, yes.
So now Warner Brothers and Plan B, Brad Pitt's company, has really done a huge budget for this film that celebrates Latin culture. It's a Cuban family that marries, the groom is a Mexican family. And it's really funny, and we really focus on the things that unite us as Latins, but also the differences in our cultures, and we laugh at ourselves, and it's really funny, very heartwarming film, focus on family and love and music and food. And we had a ball filming this movie. It was very natural to play Andy's wife, because let's hope that you're friends with your spouse.
Yeah.
So we focused on that friendship. And the difference in this movie, though, is that him and I are having marital difficulties at the beginning of the movie. And that complicates things, because then our daughter, tells us she's getting married to someone we don't even know. And we wanted to share what we were going through. So we have to kind of hide it through the whole process, so not to ruin her day. And it makes for complications that are really funny.
I watched the trailer and it looks like it's going to be so fabulous. I can't wait to June 16th get here so I can watch it on HBO. So how was it? How was the experience filming it, and where did you guys shoot the movie?
Yeah, we shot it in Atlanta for 2 months, and then in Miami.
Okay.
In Miami in August, all the exteriors, it was hot. But I really loved Atlanta. We were kind of in the COVID bubble. It was last summer. So we not only spent a lot of time on screen shooting the movie. I mean, I got up every morning at 4 a.m. People think it's not pie, people, but it was so enjoyable. I got up every day, super psyched to go to work. And we were like a family from day one. So that really transmits through the screen. And we hung out off screen too, because we were COVID safe and we knew that we could trust each other. So we had a lot of parties. I threw a party at my house where I was staying. Enrique Murciano threw a party at his house for a birthday. We would get together in a private room in a restaurant and hang out. And I loved every minute of it. It was spectacular. And it's an amazing cast. We've got Enrique Murciano, who is a cousin with one of my best friends from high school, part of my dirty dozen. There's 12 of us girls. We would get together once a month. And during COVID, we actually got together via Zoom once a week to keep each other sane. And he's an amazing actor. He was great. Diego Boneta, a very, very famous Mexican actor that's done a lot of movies really in English as well. We have these 2 young girls that play our daughters, Adria Arjona and Isabella Merced. Isabella played Dora the Explorer in the live version.
Yes.
Adria has done a bunch of movies. She did Morbius recently. She's got a new movie that's out, I think, now as well. I forget the name of it exactly, but they're incredibly talented young ladies. And of course, Andy and Marta Velasco and Ruben Rabasa, these two Cuban actors from Miami that are amazing. And we've known them for a long time here in the city. So we felt like we were with family, and it was really beautiful and wonderful experience.
It sounds like it was a family type of environment.
It was very much.
So how did you make the transition from singing to the movies?
You know, funny enough, if you remember the film Mystic Pizza, back in the day, that was Julia Roberts' first role, big role in the movies. They offered me that role back in the day. And if you notice, she's got long curly hair, like my image was at that time and everything. But I knew that I was not ready. This is a craft. And I did not want to just throw myself up there and make a fool out of myself, knowing full well that I was not prepared yet. I wanted to make sure that my music career got to where it could be before I branched out into something new and took a risk that could derail both things. And then I started studying acting on the side and in between, and preparing myself for an eventual entry into that world. I got a lot of offers that I turned down because they didn't present Latinos in a good light. And I bring baggage with me from my musical career, and I don't want to disappoint, or I want to elevate my culture whenever possible.
Yes.
And I wanted to be ready. So I was, years later, I did the first on-screen role was with Meryl Streep in Music of the Heart and Angela Bassett.
Wow.
It wasn't a leading role, but it was a nice role. And I was on the movie poster with the two of them. And imagine my nerves that the first scene I ever shot on film was one-on-one on a park bench with Meryl Streep. Oh my Lord.
The queen of movies.
Oh my gosh. And it was like a master class working with Meryl Streep.
Wow.
When we sat to do the scene, I go, you know, Miss Streep, if there's any notes you want to give me or anything you want to suggest, I'd really appreciate it. And she goes, oh yeah, you too. I'm going like, what? Like, I'm going to suggest anything to Meryl Streep? The woman was incredible. She would deliver the scene 6 times with 6 completely different nuances, still delivering, you know, the message that she had to give, giving me so much as an actor to be able to play on, because you have to be in the moment. You can't just stick in your head this one way you're going to deliver it. It's something that has to live and breathe. And I learned my biggest lesson ever. We were shooting in Carnegie Hall, and there was a gazillion extras filling that room. So they shot her angle first on stage. She was playing Roberta Guaspari, a real life person that started a violin program in public schools in New York. So they do her scenes first, you know, the camera's on her. And then when they flip the camera around, that the audience was going to be there, a lot of actors, they'll just put somebody else to read their lines while they're shooting the audience. Oh no, she stayed on that stage and she delivered the most incredible scenes, and the camera wasn't even on her for the benefit of an entire army of people that were sitting there playing the audience. That to me was the most incredible gift, and to see how generous as an actor she was to those people that were there that day. And it was something that I'll take with me for my entire life. She was incredible to work with. And Angela Bassett as well. She was amazing. It was a wonderful experience. And then I did the role with Andy on For Love or Country. I was in Glee. I've done One Day at a Time. Few and far between, but all choice roles that really, to me, were important and beautiful. And that will continue to be my criteria. You know, I have a day job, so I still do my music and all that stuff, but I really love it. I think it's a great opportunity to evolve and grow. And this movie is definitely a big evolution for me.
I like how you were very strategic in planning your entrance into movie and into acting. You were very astute in how you decided to move forward, and definitely representing yourself and your culture in a way you wanted it to be represented. So I love that fact, how you strategically planned that out.
Thank you so much. You know, I come from a teacher. You want to do things well, you know, both Mrs. Collins and my mom.
Mhm.
I really do believe that you need to sharpen your tools in whatever it is you're going to do and be the best that you can be.
That's right.
And I learned that from the best. So that's important to me.
Awesome. So what was your most exciting project that you worked on, whether it's singing, acting, or anything other than that?
Oh my gosh, that's hard because I've loved everything I've done.
That's good.
But I think one project that will, if I had to pick one album to leave behind, it would be Mi Tierra, this album that we did that was about roots Cuban music that celebrated where that Latin side came from. It had all the greats of Cuban music on it, Cachao, all the Arturo Sandoval, Paquito de Rivera, these amazing musicians. And it broke through in Spanish to every country in the world. It remains one of
Wow.
our biggest selling albums of
Hmm.
all our career. And it really culturally is something that I wanted to leave behind for my kids and now my grandson,
Mhm.
because music in Cuba after the revolution, it froze. If you were a Cuban artist that didn't subscribe to the revolution, you were erased from the history books. People like Celia Cruz, like Cachao,
Wow.
nobody in Cuba would know who they are. Now they have a better idea, but it turned so political and artists couldn't express themselves freely. And so music kind of got stuck there. And Mi Tierra was an album that we chose to celebrate the music of the 40s in Cuba, musically, but new songs that we wrote. And since I had learned all those songs to sing for my grandma early on, I had a very keen knowledge of how lyrics were, put together. There was a lot of double entendre because you couldn't speak openly about either sexuality or all these things in Cuba. So it was very romantic and beautiful. And that album remains like one of my favorite things that I've done.
So was Con los años que me
Yes.
quedan, was that on Mi Tierra?
Yes, it was. It was
Oh, I
on
love
Tierra,
that.
and that was the first song that Emilio and I wrote together.
Oh my gosh,
Oh.
you know, the video of it,
Special.
it takes you back to Casablanca. I was like, oh my God, it's so wonderful. I loved it.
And you know what the inspiration was for that whole look for me? A picture I had of my mom when she was 15 in a dress. She wasn't at a bar because there's no way she was going to be allowed to be in it. But I put it at a bar, but she's leaning on the fireplace. And that whole picture I showed it to our crew. It was an Italian crew, these top of the line, hair and makeup people. And the photographer that shot a lot of my album covers shot that video. So and Cachao is in that video. He's playing the bass.
Okay.
There we
I
put
remember
like
that.
what bands would have looked like in Cuba at that time. However, I'm wearing a leather dress that is kind of an homage to modern times, but very much the hairstyle that my mom had and the flower in my hair. And it's one of our favorite
It's
things.
a beautiful scene and a beautiful tribute to your mother. I'm
Thank
sure
you
she was
so
an absolutely beautiful woman.
Thank you. So she
Yeah.
was. She looked like Liz Taylor, my mama.
All right.
Gorgeous, gorgeous woman, and always dressed to the nines. She was a fashion plate. She wouldn't leave the house without her makeup and hair and everything like that.
Wow. Well, you know,
Well, you look fabulous yourself, lady. You know, you look
Thank
fantastic. The fruit
Yes.
didn't fall too far from the tree.
Thank you so much.
well,
Thank you.
Gloria, what I like about you mostly is that you're very flexible in your world of reaching out and doing different things. You're not just tunnel vision, like I'm only going to do music. So you're doing the film and the television and Red Table Talk. And so I want to grow up and be just like you.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, like you. And by the way, Emilio is the best, most motivating human being. And we both partners in business. We both handle all our things together. We're a team.
That's
And that
great.
really helps a lot, And I think women can do it all. I watched my mom and my grandma do it. My grandma came from Cuba at 57 with nothing, started a business, a catering business that she was able to buy her own home. She helped my mom. She helped me. She helped take care of my dad when he got ill and me. And she did it all. And I watched that little 4'6" lady
Wow.
handle things that were incredible. So I came from two very strong women that did it all. And I think we women, that's what we do. My
Yeah.
keyword is balance.
Awesome role
Yeah.
models. Oh, awesome.
They
Yes.
very much so. Like you ladies.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
trying.
When we grow up.
So what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were a little girl, what did you aspire to be?
I wanted to be a psychologist, and
Me
Um,
too.
I would have. I studied psychology and communications majors and a French minor. And by the time I graduated, I had been accepted to the Sorbonne in Paris. So I'd kind of switched gears and wanted to do international law and diplomacy. But while that was happening, the band was getting more popular and I fell in love and we got married. And so, I followed my heart. And I also didn't want to leave my mom alone with my dad and my sister. So I decided with my heart rather than my head. And I think I made the
Good
right
decision, though. Good
Yeah.
decision.
Yes.
the best decision. Absolutely. And I can still use my psychology.
Exactly. Exactly. That was my major also, and I still can use it.
Absolutely. My family calls me. They call me Doolittle One or Dr. Cheating, which is funny, like making fun of me, but they all call me for medical and psychological advice.
Lord. Well, we can understand why. You give good advice. You have been so good on this interview. Thank you so much.
I so appreciate
Speaking of advice, what advice would you give a person that's aspiring, a young person that's aspiring to be an entertainer?
I would say don't do it because you want to be famous, because fame is not intrinsic. It's something that people give you and it can be taken away just as quickly as it was given. Do it because you have a passion for sharing your art, whatever it may be, whether it be music or acting or writing or painting. If you choose the arts, you have to do it because it makes you happy. And the best thing that anybody could do is get up every day of their lives and spend most of their waking hours doing something that you love.
Yes.
And if you're good at it, the success and the money will come, but that is not what is going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is to be fulfilled and to do what interests you. Yeah, of course, we got to have day jobs, while we were, both Emilio and I, while we were trying to make it in the music because we both loved it. He worked at Bacardi and we made a very strong decision when we decided to stop working our day jobs and that we were going to be able to support ourselves and, buy insurance for our son and make sure that he was taken care of. So you still have to do the work. So I would say study, get as educated as you can, go as high on the ladder of education as you can, because nowadays you need a bigger degree to get a decent job. So try to do that. And if you're interested in somewhere else, still try to sharpen your tools and be the best at it that you can be.
That's awesome. That's awesome advice. I wish I'd had that advice when I was younger.
Well, you can give the advice, but people don't often take it, especially our kids.
True.
They'll take advice from everybody else except their parents.
That's true.
And we all go through that.
That's true. That's true. Well, Gloria, it's been so awesome to have you here at the island with us. We're about real talk, about real situations in the world, and we don't like to sugarcoat anything, and you have not done that. And we really appreciate you being your real self. And you are welcome at the island anytime. Is there any project coming up that you can tell us about?
Well, next time I'll bring my bathing suit so we can all go for a dip.
Yes.
Yes, that sounds great.
I can't announce it completely, but I can say that you're going to hear it before the end of the year.
Okay.
It's music.
Okay.
And it's very family oriented. The family's going to be all over it. So you're going to hear something very soon. We'll probably be out with it by September.
Okay.
I tell you what, I'll give you a heads up so you can be the first ones.
Please. Please do.
All right.
So again, you are welcome at the island anytime, and anytime you're in San Antonio, let us know. We will definitely have a Sunday dinner or Friday fish fry or whatever.
Oh, it'd be lovely.
Please let us know.
Thank you so much. I will. My love to all of you and to everybody that's listening. Keep listening to that island because the island way is the best way, baby.
Yes, it is.
Right.
And on that note, we're going to say adios, amigos.
Yes, ma'am. Adios.
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 Bye.
Ciao, Bella.